It is poaching season for a lot of the NFL as firings are happening. Black Monday, post regular season ending Sunday in the NFL. Adam Peters, 49ers assistant GM, he's going to be one of the hot names. Already getting requests are the 49ers to interview Adam Peters. That and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you at BD Peacock, at Eric _ actually at Crocky209 now is the handle on Twitter. Of course, you can find us on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Big ups to all the everydayers out there. We love you. We see you. We appreciate you. It was a fantastic regular season. Things getting really important now in the postseason, but there's some other business that happens around the postseason for some teams. It is the off season for other teams. And is this the year the 49ers lose one of their top lieutenants in the front office, Adam Peters, assistant GM? He will be interviewed potentially, if he wants to be, by teams that are looking for a new GM. More on that in a moment. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by PrizePicks. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. So the Washington Commanders wasting no time. Well, they wasted a little bit more time than the Atlanta Falcons did, Croc. Did you see the end of the Saints-Falcons game, by the way? How odd was that? I'm not sure that the Saints are going to hold on to Dennis Allen either. If you've got quarterbacks changing the plays in the huddle to go score a touchdown, and listening to Jameis Winston's reasoning for it after the game, I'm just like, blow that whole thing up too. But the team that they destroyed 48-17, the Atlanta Falcons, they fired their head coach at 12:01 a.m. Eastern time. Talking Black Monday, they at least waited until midnight to do it and didn't do the deed on Sunday. But Arthur Smith, the Falcons, fired. And Washington Commanders also fired Monday Ron Rivera as their head coach, and looking like Martin Mayhew, former 49ers, I believe assistant GM was his title. I don't remember what his exact title was with the 49ers. Maybe it was player personnel director. But Martin Mayhew was the guy, came from the 49ers. Looks like he's on his way out because they're already requesting interviews for head coaches and GMs in Washington. One of those names, Croc, is 49ers current assistant general manager, Adam Peters, who's had some interviews, turned down some opportunities as well recently. But that Washington job is actually much more, I think it's a lot better job than it's ever been now with new ownership. And here's another wrinkle in the whole thing, Croc, and we're going to talk a lot about Adam Peters, but how about this one? The new owner in Washington is an owner of other franchises in other sports, namely the Philadelphia 76ers in the NBA. So what is he doing? He's utilizing as much brain power as he can from not only the NFL, but from the NBA as well. Former Warriors GM Bob Myers is coming on and being hired in sort of looks like an advisory sort of a role, not as GM of the football team, but it looks like here, I'll read the report because this is from Ian Rappaport on Monday morning. The Commanders are hiring one of the best in sports, luring two-time NBA Executive of the Year Bob Myers to the NFL to help run their franchise. And that's fascinating. Bob Myers had this to say about it. Said, I've been fortunate to know Josh Harris, the new owner of the Washington Commanders, for many years, and his commitment to building championship caliber teams is what drew me here. In my experience, championship infrastructure begins with a strong ownership group that prioritizes culture and invests in attracting the industry's most talented and innovative leaders. In speaking with Josh and his team, it's clear they will do everything it takes to build out a world-class organization, one that can win on the field and make a positive mark in the DMV community. That is DC, Maryland, Virginia, I believe is what DMV stands for. This is the type of opportunity that really inspires me, and I look forward to contributing to the next chapter of this storied franchise. So sort of an advisory role. I don't know if it's a permanent job for Bob Myers there, but they're getting to work and they're requesting interviews. And a lot of the top names you would expect are out there for head coach or on the list of interviews already being requested here on Monday. And one of those is 49ers assistant GM Adam Peters. Croc. Fascinating stuff going on in Washington right now.
I think some of having a long-term, sustainable, championship caliber organization, some of it has to be a little luck. But I do think when you talk about, just like he said, like the infrastructure, right? Like, just how do you structure this organization? We've talked about the Lions for a lot of years. I felt like even Matthew Stafford, always been a good quarterback, but man, bad organizational structure is really hard to overcome that. And you see, like, finally they're starting to figure out how to kind of work around that. When you look at the Washington Commanders, it does start at the top, and it starts at, getting a guy like Adam Peters. I mean, Peters has been interviewed several times over the last few years. A lot of times we felt like, oh, this the year, like, if we're not going to lose him, and it almost felt like they've lost everyone but him. But people, I feel like, that truly understand their value and what they want. You don't got to take the first thing that comes to you. I had an opportunity this like really a few weeks ago or a month ago, and somebody, and I'm not saying I'm Bob Myers or anything like that, but someone said, "Hey, Croc, we have a head coach opening for this varsity high school football team. We would love to get you in that position, and you run everything." And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, no, I like where I'm at. I understand that. Not the right time, not the right situation for me personally. And I think when it comes to somebody like Bob Myers, he understands that. In the first order of business, let's get somebody in here that has a really good pulse on how to build a championship caliber roster, who understands the relationship between a head coach and a general manager. Or a better person to get right now out of whatever your options are than Bob Myers, then Adam Peters, who's been a part of the 49ers organization. And if there's one thing you can say about how things have worked out, maybe not great at the quarterback position or up and down, whatever, with some of their decisions that they made, but everything feels like it's a team effort with how they've done it. And I think Adam Peters bringing that to a team like the Washington Commanders, if they do indeed end up bringing him in, I 100% understand it. And if Bob Myers is the one that kind of makes that decision on bringing him in, I'd say it's probably coming from someone who truly understands what it means to build a championship contender.
Yeah, and it's smart by ownership to bring in people who know what a great organization looks like Bob Myers. And I think it's important for Bob Myers, and they're looking at other great organizations, and they admire. I think the teams they threw out there, they're like, well, we want to talk to people who are involved with teams like the 49ers and the Ravens and the Patriots and the Steelers that have had long-term success and are good, well-run organizations. And so I think it's a smart way to start, even though it's kind of interesting. You see, well, why are they bringing in an NBA guy? What are they doing? NBA guy brings in an NBA guy. I think there's a method to this madness. By the way, Bob Myers would hoop with him. I'd see him over at the YMCA in San Francisco occasionally. He's 6'7". He played college basketball. He's good. But I didn't realize when I was playing hoops with him that I should hit him up about an NFL scouting job. I didn't think that would be the direction he'd be going with his career at the time. So that's wild. He's doing NFL stuff. But Bob Myers is a smart guy. Adam Peters is a smart guy. Adam Peters is part of a great organization, does not have to go anywhere sooner than he needs to, and can wait for the right opportunity. Is Washington the right opportunity? I'm not sure. But it's not going to be the only opportunity he has either. Like, every team that has a GM opening is going to call the 49ers and request to speak to Adam Peters. That's just the way it's going to be. And 49ers fans need to realize that the Niners are an organization that's winning and is going to continue to get poached as they already have. A little bit more on that concept in a little bit, Croc. Yeah, well, you got something else?
Well, I was going to say, a lot of really just this success at the NFL level kind of have a quarterback. And there's another organization, let's say the Los Angeles Chargers, where you do have the quarterback Herbert, and they do have the openings, but then do you want to deal with the Spanos? And I'm very familiar with the Spanos. I'm from Stockton. They're from Stockton. They own damn near half of Stockton, right? As far as the housing market and everything like that. But they've been very hands-on with exactly how they want things to work, instead of just saying, oh, you're the general manager. Let me sit back, kind of like 49ers Jet York did. Let me sit back. You guys do your thing. I'm hiring a head coach and a general manager that I trust. You guys figure this thing out, and it's up to you. I don't know if the Chargers do that, but maybe Washington Commanders would be a team that will do that.
More on that idea, specifically the Chargers, because it's something I brought up and got a lot of pushback from fans. And there is an opportunity for Adam Peters, at least in title and maybe in money as well, to still move up in the 49ers organization. Could that be enough to keep him around? More on that and potential poachings to happen to the 49ers this offseason. Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The NFL regular season wrapped up now, but still plenty of playoff action to get involved with at FanDuel. And one of my favorite things to bet on all year long in the sporting world is those tasty draft props. And it's draft season for everybody in the NFL, but especially some of those teams. A lot of the teams that are doing the hirings for their coaches are also deep in off-season mode. 49ers still in postseason mode right now, but John Lynch was on the air recently on radio talking about some of the scouting stuff he's getting involved with now, a little heavier because it is the offseason, while he's still keeping an eye on the current roster in the playoffs as well. And right now, new customers at FanDuel can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed with just a $5 bet. Just place your first $5 bet. We're talking about $150 in bonus bets, win or lose on that first bet. And draft props, whatever it is, NFL, playoffs, game to game, you can bet on all of those, but there's same game live parlays. There is find bets in the new in the Explore tab as well. If you're looking for new bets, no matter the sport, NBA, NHL, all of it available at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup and get $150 extra to play with. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. So I put a tweet out yesterday, Sunday, before the 49ers game. And it was basically like, man, Adam, if I'm the Chargers, could you entice Bill Belichick over? And could you bring in a GM like Adam Peters? And what would that look like? And if Adam Peters gets a GM job, Croc, you can bet he's going to look into the 49ers organization, people he knows and trusts and believes in, to go with him, whether it's in the front office. Some scouts would probably go with him. If he can, if he can get them an upgrade and it works out with the 49ers, and, there's going to be some dealings behind the scenes. And we've seen this multiple times with the 49ers, with coaches and front office people leaving the organization in recent years. They're a popular organization for other franchises to go try to poach from. But is the next offensive coordinator in the NFL on the 49ers staff right now? And so I just floated this out there. I said, Bill Belichick, head coach, Adam Peters, GM, and Brian Griese, offensive coordinator, to go with Justin Herbert and the Los Angeles Chargers. And it was kind of amazing, some of the pushback I got for different reasons. 49ers fans, of course, their thing is like, look, oh, no, Adam Peters not going anywhere. John Lynch got the team president bump. And so that means Adam Peters goes from assistant GM to GM. And so he's going to stick around because he's going to be GM anyway with the 49ers, and he's not going anywhere. And I just want to say that's really wishful thinking from 49ers fans. And yes, that's in place. And Adam Peters, if he sticks around, I think we'll get a little bit more money and we'll get the official GM title. But you're just kind of maneuvering, you're just rearranging deck chairs, right, at that point. Because if Adam Peters wants to be the number one voice in a front office, he has to go somewhere else. He's still going to be behind John Lynch. We already know Kyle Shanahan's the top of the pyramid for the 49ers. So at most, no matter what his title is, Adam Peters is going to be the third loudest voice during the offseason in the 49ers building, right? And I'm sure he wants to be closer to number one, and maybe he doesn't have that aspiration in his career, but if he doesn't, why is he taking any of the interviews with some of these franchises out there? But he's also earned the opportunity to not have to jump at a bad job either. So I think it's really smart what Adam Peters has done. But I do think it is wishful thinking from some 49ers fans to just think that, oh, Adam Peters, grew up in the area. He's a 49ers fan like I am, and he wants to stay forever and just be on the 49ers. Like, you might lose him for the right job. I just want everyone to realize that. A thing that probably surprised me even more, Croc, was some Chargers fans that were like, I don't know, Bill Belichick, no, I'd rather have XYZ coach. And I'm like, To the Chargers? I don't think the
So
Chargers.
you don't want like the winningest coach in NFL history as your coach. You'd rather just have someone else just because.
I was blown away by that. I was like, okay, like, Harbaugh was one of the popular names. It's like, okay, I get it. Harbaugh. He's had some success in the NFL, but his 4-year run with the 49ers and how that fell apart so quickly, and how he's jammed out of every location he's ever been in, or the 20 plus years success that Bill Belichick's had, and you pair him with a better GM situation. You've got a quarterback in place who's already a top 5 quarterback, and then you add a Bill Belichick defense to that. And then maybe a piece of Kyle Shanahan's offense to Bill Belichick's defense. I mean, we're talking about building something potentially special, And I don't know if Bill Belichick would work, and he wants, he's had the Earhart Perkins offense going on forever with the Patriots, and it's different terminology. Would he want to go Shanahan style offense? He's got his hands in a lot of things. Would he want somebody? Does he want to be the guy in charge and be in charge of everything and be the GM? And so there are some questions there, but. I'm surprised that an organization that hasn't won a Super Bowl ever, and you got a guy like Bill Belichick who's got, just a trophy room of stuff, and you're like, yeah, I don't want a piece of that. I don't want that guy coaching my football team. I thought that was a little bit surprising, but because the reason I came up with that idea with Adam Peters and Bill Belichick is because Peters started out as an area scout for the New England Patriots, so he's worked in that building. He's worked with Bill Belichick, and they know each other. And I know Bill Belichick respects what the 49ers are doing over here. And so if I was a franchise, I'd be like, man, can I marry what the Patriots did for 20 years, what the 49ers did for 20 years before that, but what they're doing now as well, and put those two things together and have Bill Belichick be in charge of the defense and have a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, and then have a part of Kyle Shanahan's offense and the guy who helped identify and develop Brock Purdy be the offensive coordinator, because it's hard to find right now offensive coordinators because they're all head coaches now that call plays and been involved with the 49er or with the Kyle Shanahan offenses around the league. So I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting combination. I don't think it's very likely necessarily, but Adam Peters might not be the only guy that gets pulled away from the 49ers. I wouldn't be shocked at all if teams want to interview one of the Kubiak. I always get the Kubiaks confused. I think it's Clint Kubiak is the current run game coordinator, and Clay is the younger brother who's assistant quarterback coach behind Brian Griese. But Brian Griese is an interesting name that could be a really fast riser because he's a popular name. He's got the family lineage. He's been an NFL quarterback, and now he's been a QB coach for a couple of years for the 49ers. And by the way, Kyle Shanahan was a quarterback coach for 1 year, a wide receiver coach for 1 year in the NFL before he became an offensive coordinator in the league too. So it happens fast. And he's been, Brian Griese has been part of the right offense to go get an offensive coordinator job if he wants to be a play caller in the NFL. So some other names could pop up aside from Adam Peters. And I don't think the Commanders are the only team that are going to hire or request to interview Adam Peters is what I'm saying.
Out of all the things that you had mentioned with the fans, like pushing back on whether it's Charger fans or 49er fans, I would have thought that Griese would be the one that they push back on most, not getting a championship caliber head coach that's just kind of run his course over in New England. I feel like we've seen that recently where, Andy Reid, right? Now, Andy Reid didn't win the championships in Philly, but people forget how it kind of ended in Philly. It soured, and it was just time for a change of location. And I want to say they won 4 games in that last year, and then he was fired, went over to Kansas City, got Alex Smith, and they started, having some winning going on right away. But Belichick, it might just be over in New England and time for him to change somewhere else or just retire. He is really old, but maybe just go somewhere else and turn another franchise around. And when you look at the Chargers, I think that would be a good situation. You talked about Peters being an area scout for him, having that relationship and truly knowing and understanding what Belichick is all about and how he wants his things done. I think that would be great just to already know how he is, as opposed to, okay, I'm the GM, and then the Spanos, they go and get Belichick, and then all of a sudden, let's just put these two guys together, and you know nothing about what Belichick wants. You don't walk in blindfolded. I think the bigger question, if we're talking about pushing back on anything as it pertains to any of that, would be the Spanos spending the money that it takes to get Belichick. Like, that's where they've tried to cut corners a lot when it comes to hiring head coaches. I feel like that's been their biggest issue. They've had opportunities to go out and get a guy, and they always go the route of, let's go this route's a little cheaper, and we can pay this guy who nobody really wants like that, and we'll see if he can change things around. And they've continued to fail in that aspect. So, going out and get a big shot guy, pairing him with Adam Peters, and maybe even bringing in a guy like Brian Griese to be the offensive coordinator, I can see that happening. And when you see the success of 49ers coordinators, I know Brian Griese isn't one of Kyle Shanahan's minions, but just seeing the success that they're having in other places, watching Bobby Slowick coach the Houston Texans and that offense, and he's done with a young quarterback and putting him in a situation where, hey, this is going to work for you, and without having like a legit run game. That's been pretty cool to see. Could Brian Griese do something like that for Herbert? And I think being a former quarterback, we've seen guys like Doug Peterson, and he was a backup for a lot of years in the NFL. Just kind of understanding that quarterback, being one with him, and then having your vision or version of how an offense could be successful and what it takes, and formulating your play calls and things around that. I think that would potentially be pretty cool. So I could see all of that happening. I think they're giving you a hard time pushing back on that.
And one other note with Adam Peters too, and maybe there's egos involved, but there has to be some trust, and you see that a lot, with a couple of years ago, because Adam Peters was up for, according to Albert Breer, I think Peters might have taken the New York Giants job. That might have been one of the jobs he would have been interested in taking. It ended up going to the combo again. And that's kind of why you look for the connections and who trusts who and who's a package deal together. And so that's why I kind of drew the connections with, maybe Peters would want to bring on Griese as part of the coaching staff with the defensive minded head coach, and Bill Belichick, someone he's worked under before. So there's some connections there. But Joe Shane and Brian Dable, they came from Buffalo. They were together. They were the assistant GM and the quarterback coach there, and they, or the offensive coordinator there. And so, you see that a lot. You see people bringing in people they worked with before. It's almost 100% of the time. It's very rare that you just interview a guy that you never worked with before, and that's the one you end up hiring in these, GM head coach hiring processes. So fascinating to watch, and we'll see what happens with the 49ers, see if they do get poached once again this offseason. Peters leaves, though. Just welcome back Martin Mayhew. He brought you in draft picks as well when he left, and he's like, "Come on back, Martin Mayhew." And there's an open seat all of a sudden now for you here. So wouldn't mind that. It looks like he's on the way out in Washington. I want to talk about Jake Moody. Is he a problem for the 49ers going into the playoffs next? Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by PrizePicks. The easiest, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers at PrizePicks. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks in the pool, all you do is you pick more or less than the projections on 2 to 6 players. Those stat projections on PrizePicks you can find with the NFL or tons of other sports, and then you watch those winnings roll in. If you nail those more or less than projections on the stats for 2 to 6 players and win up to 25 times your money while you're doing it, you can turn $10 into $250 at PrizePicks. And PrizePicks offers a reboot policy that if your entries, they stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For example, football or basketball games, if one of your players goes down, gets injured in the first half, doesn't return the second half, that player is rebooted. And PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with that injury insurance. Just go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL or download the app and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that is prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL, promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, I'm going to reference the tweets once again here, Croc. And this one is from Brother Blackbeard on Twitter. And he says, on the Locked On 49ers episode, you guys said Moody had a good year, and I thought about the Browns game and rolled my eyes. Kickers can't miss game winners, and we say it's a good year. Now he can't make the easy one in a game that means nothing against the Rams. Don't trust this kid for the playoffs. What's your trust level right now for Jake Moody going into the playoffs, Croc? And do you agree with Brother Blackbeard that Jake Moody is a problem and that he actually hasn't had a good year? as a rookie NFL kicker?
I think you can have a good year while missing a few kicks. Now, great year? No, because you need those to come through, right? Now look at that with, I'll say, a cornerback. Usually, and if people look at the wording in which I do when I put out a clip of a cornerback, if he makes a good play on the ball, I'll say, man, that was a good play. A great play would mean that he picked it off.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he bats the ball down. Oh, man, that's a good play, man. Good technique, follow through. Like, that's a good rep. But it can't be great unless you seal the deal. And as we pertain to Moody, we didn't say he had a great year. We said he had a good year. You know, he started off hot, he had the yips a little bit between the Cleveland game, and then he had missed like another kick. And then obviously he missed one in this game. But for the most part, he was very reliable. It wasn't the issue. Now, with the 49ers, they're not in a whole lot of pressure-packed situations. So now you're looking at 2 games where you can kind of make a direct correlation to a loss because of a kick by him. And you don't want it to come down to a kicker, and maybe the game would have played out different if he would have made his kick and made his extra point. Maybe it would have looked different, and maybe the 49ers would have won. I don't know. But I'm not going to say he did not have a good year because he missed a few kicks in the season. So good year, not a great year. And I think hopefully that's what our listener is talking about.
Well, no kicker is ever going to be 100%. And I understand from a trust level, and I understand where the listeners, and he's not the only one. There's a lot of listeners that are like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like what's going on with Jake Moody. I don't trust him. And I understand that. But that was,
I don't trust him as much as I trusted Robbie Gould. If you're saying on a trust level of, a solid kicker to Robbie Gould, like Robbie Gould made every kick in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I saw him line up to win a game, he made it. I think he might have had like one miss in a key situation. Was it the Bengals game? He had like missed a kick against the Bengals or something like that, and they ended up going into overtime. 49ers won there. I want to say he missed a kick in that game. That was a big kick. But outside of that, do with money in any situation where you needed him to come through. So the trust level on him, whether it was him building that up over the years or just how great he was in the postseason, obviously, like, that's off the charts. I do not trust Moody to that extent. But do I think Moody is bad this year? Nah, I don't think it was bad.
I mean, especially for a rookie kicker. And that's where I kind of come from on this is I expected a roller coaster ride of a rookie kicker. To be honest with you, if you look, history tells us there's a good chance that rookie kicker wouldn't even be the kicker again next year, because that's just the way things have gone in the NFL. And that has been a much flatter roller coaster than I thought it would be with a rookie kicker for the 49ers this year. So to me, Jake Moody has exceeded expectations just based on what rookie kickers usually are in the NFL. Now, he's not battle tested yet. He made some big kicks in college, but we'll see what it's like in the playoffs. But to me, it's a philosophical thing. If you're not cool with the rookie kicker in the playoffs, then you shouldn't have a rookie kicker. And so that's where it all comes down to going back to April. It's like, why are you drafting a 3rd round kicker if you're not going to be comfortable with the kicker that's a rookie in the playoffs? And Jake Moody's been as good as you could hope for a rookie kicker. And he hasn't been perfect. And I think, do I trust that he's going to make every single kick in the playoffs? I don't know, not necessarily. But his misses have come in bunches. And so hopefully he's over this bunch, and he had another bunch in the middle of the year. But aside from that, he's been awesome. So we'll see what it looks like, and he won't be battle tested until he's battle tested. And it's tough for kickers in the NFL. It's especially tough for young kickers in the NFL as far as just his season, his rookie season. He's had as good of a rookie season as I could have imagined for the 49ers this year. I would trust Robbie Gould more in the playoffs kicking field goals than Jake Moody. But that doesn't mean that Jake Moody's had a bad year at all. I think he's been good for a rookie for sure. And that things are going to be a little tight when he's up there to kick, especially if it's a game-winning field goal in the playoffs. That's for sure. So we'll see if he's up for it.
The 49ers have a bye week. So hopefully, because you talked about him missing kicks in bunches, I think last time it happened with the Browns game, he missed a kick the very next week. Mm-hmm. Maybe by default, he kind of skips over that and just gets back to being good in the divisional round. That would be clutch. But you made a kind of a good point here, and you talked about having a level of confidence, and you're kind of saying like if you don't have the confidence, I bet Kyle, if you asked him, he said, I believe in the kid. I think it's going to be just fine. And ultimately, we can always view things a certain way. Fans, we know how the fans, I mean, heck, we can say a player is, oh man, I thought he had a good game. And they're like, how dare you say he had a good game? He had an amazing game. So we know that sometimes the fans can kind of, really be up or really be down on something. And there's a lot of times there's not much in between. But I bet Kyle still feels just as confident. It's like, missed a couple kicks, we'll be fine.
He's good. That's exactly what he said post game. He was asked about it. He's like, no, Jake's good. He's our kicker. He's good. So that's how Kyle feels about it. And I'm sure that's how everybody feels about it. And I'm sure a lot of people feel a lot of different ways, depending on if he makes or misses a big kick in the playoffs. So that is to be determined. Have you heard the theory of the NFL championship belt, Croc?
Well, I did hear about it right before we got on the live.
I want to, we're out of time today. I want to carry this in and we'll tease it for Winky Wednesday. The NFL championship belt is an interesting theory. And if you follow it along, this came from some NBA conversations that happened here on the Locked On Podcast Network that I was clued into. And so essentially whoever wins the title has the championship belt, like a wrestling belt, like boxing, right? And you have to beat that team to take the belt. So if you beat the Kansas City Chiefs this season, which they've lost some games, someone took the belt from the Kansas City Chiefs after they won the Super Bowl. And then somebody beat that team that beat them. And so we're going to follow the belt and find out where the NFL championship belt would be right now in the NFL going into the playoffs on tomorrow's Winky Wednesday. We've got some season awards to give out for the 49ers this year on a bye week, getting ready for a wild card round of playoffs and find out who the 49ers are going to be playing in their division round of playoffs. That's coming up later this week on Locked On 49ers. Talk to you then.